Hello everyone and welcome to the last game we'll be showing from round 3 of this year's Norway Chess. It is Nodirbek Abdusattorov versus Alireza Firouzja, and both of them are pretty much in the same situation. Alireza lost one game and he won one game. He lost to Gukesh and defeated Mamedjarov, and Nodirbek he lost to Anish Giri. In the tiebreaks, in the Armageddon game, he didn't lose in Classical, and then he defeated Aryan Tari in round 2 in Classical. So both of them would of course enjoy a win here. Let's see what happened. It's quite a wild game. It's very hard to say where someone went wrong. You guys will have to help me out with that one. So Nodirbek has the white pieces and he opens with d4. Alireza replies with the d5, pawn to c4, pawn to c6, the Slav defense, knight to f3, knight to f6, and now knight to c3. Going for the three knights variation, pawn to e6, transposing into the semi-Slav, e3, and knight b to d7. And here, queen to c2 and bishop to d3 are the most common moves, and there are over 25,000 games in the database with those moves. So even though bishop to e2 it has been played quite a lot, it can definitely be considered a sideline, as there are maybe 1,200 games in the database. But not really a sideline, but not nearly as popular as those two. So trying to throw Alireza off guard here a little bit, we have bishop to d6, and now pawn to b3, another fairly rare move here. Castles is the most common move. We have b3, b6 by Alireza, bishop to b2, and now bishop to b7. So both players developing their bishop pair very nicely. Both players castle to safety to king side, and now queen to c2. And now we've again transposed into the known lines of the semi-Slav. Rook 8 to d1, and now queen to e7. Developing the queen, connecting rooks. We have rook f to e1 and rook 8 to d8. Both players claim the d and d file for their rooks. And now comes pawn to h3. Here, a pretty standard move is bishop to f1. Here we have pawn to h3, and now pawn to h6. Taking away the g5 square from the knight, bishop to f1, and now there are games that reach this position. c5 is a known move, bishop to b4 is a known move, even e5 is a known move, but the move Alireza plays is a new one. So after bishop to a3, it is now as of move 14 that we have a completely new game. Nodirbek replies by capturing in the center once, and now e captures on d5. You have to play e captures, even though you'd like to capture towards the center, then you give up the b5 square. To give you an example, if captures, just bishop captures on a3, queen captures on a3, sorry about that. Had to throw something to the lower floor. We have queen captures on a3, and now knight to b5. This would happen if you capture towards the center, and now the a7 pawn is hanging and the queen, and there's no good way to handle this. If you try to defend it, queen a5, knight to d6, and you are in big trouble. So after c captures on d5, we have e captures on d5, and now bishop captures on a3. We have queen captures on a3, and now rook to b1. Hoping to get that b4 move in, which would kind of trap the black queen on a3. So of course Alireza stops this, pawn to a5, and now bishop to d3. We have queen back to e7, and queen to b2. Preparing to bring the rook over to the c file. We have knight to e4, and now rook b to c1. Knight to g5, offering a trade of knights, even hoping to mess up Nodirbek's pawn structure in front of the king. So knight captures, queen captures, and now knight to a4, putting pressure on that b6 pawn. The knight can't really move, but it also kind of puts the knight out of the game, and it makes Alireza's job of going after that white king a little bit easier. Now, of course, you can't grab the g6 square. If you could play rook to e6, rook to g6, it would be great. But okay, little by little. And okay, the light square bishop isn't spectacular at the moment, but at some point Alireza will play c5, and this bishop will come alive at some point. So here, rook to e6 adds defense to the 6th rank, queen to e2, and now pawn to c5. And now, how do you deal with this? Well, Nodirbek went for a very, very bold move. You could just play queen to g4, stop the attack, but he played d captures on c5, and now Alireza just frees up his light square bishop. He plays pawn to d4, and he threatens checkmate on g2. Okay, it's not really a problem. Queen to g4 offers a queen trade, queen back to e7, and now, again, not a lot of ways to capture on d4. If you capture with the pawn, you lose the rook here. If you capture with the queen, then knight captures, or even better, knight to e5 just wins on the spot, as the queen is attacked, and also the bishop on d3. So instead, we have bishop to f5, attacking the rook here. And knight to f6. Alireza attacks Nodirbek's queen on g4, queen back to e2, and now rook to e5, just attacking the bishop on f5. And now the question is how to play this. Do you move the bishop, or do you try something a bit more active? I will show you what happens if you move the bishop. If you move the bishop, let's say bishop to b1 or c2 or d3, d captures on e3 will be played, and now it's not easy to reply here. If you play f captures on e3, then bishop captures on g2 demolishes all of the white king's defenses. For example, king captures on e2, you're going to play knight to e4, and now the rook, the queen, the knight, the other rook will slowly but surely suffocate that white king. Even if you remove some of the attackers, doesn't really matter. You don't even have to capture right away. You could play rook to g5 check, then capture with the queen. Let's say king f1, queen captures on e4. Now the other rook comes into the attack, and it's well, very, very unlikely that you will survive this if black plays correctly. So what you could play after bishop to b1 and captures on f3 is pawn to f4, but even this doesn't really work, because rook to d2 just forces white to give up the queen, and there's really not all that much. If you move the queen, of course, the g2 pawn hangs, so you're going to have to play captures on d2, but not like that. Rook, you will have to capture on e5, and after rook captures on e2, you will also play rook captures on e2, and now knight to h5. You do have 2 rooks for the queen, but it's not, yeah, I mean, it's not like in Fabi's position yesterday. Black is the one who will be pushing for a win here. However, this could be the best option Nodirbek has. Instead, he played pawn to c6, and now we have bishop captures on c6. Of course, you don't mind giving up a piece because the bishop on f5 is also hanging. Rook captures on c6, d captures on e3 now. Not going for the bishop, this is much, much stronger, and king to f1 by Nodirbek. And now just rook captures on f5. Another very interesting idea would be just to triple up on the e file, and now how do you deal with the threat of just pawn captures on f2? You have to play rook to c8. This is the only way to do it. And okay, now white does get to save the bishop, but then knight to e4 comes. And there's, so how do you defend against knight to g3, knight to f2? Just no good way to do it. You have to play rook to d1, then knight captures on f2, and again, it will be black who will be pushing for the win here. So rook to e8 is very nice here. Alireza instead goes rook captures on f5. He regains the material. Queen captures on e3, and of course queen d7, avoiding the trade, going after the rook, and now rook to c1, rook back to c1, also queen to c3, not a bad idea, but rook to c1 was played, rook to e8 now, and queen captures on b6, grabbing that pawn. Now Nodirbek is up a pawn, but it is, this is not a game of pawns. So knight to e4, now going for that f2 square, and now how do you deal with this? Interestingly, the only move for white is king to g1 in order to survive this. Then comes knight captures on f2, but you don't have to worry about any checks. You'll just play rook captures on e8 with check, queen captures, and now queen to c7, offering to trade queens, and if king to h7, white will also just play king to h2. The queen nicely covers this diagonal, and everything is perfectly fine. If queen to e3, okay, you are very close to the white king, but doesn't really matter. Rook to c5, and white survives this. So let's say rook to f6, the game continues. It's pretty good for both white and black. White will probably just go after the rook with rook to c6, rook to c5. But in the game, rook c to d1 was played. He attacked Alireza's queen, and this is probably the point of no return for Nodirbek, but only if Alireza plays everything, at engine level precision. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this perfect line that allows Alireza to play for the win while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this wild line. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on f2. Now, you might be wondering what's the idea behind this move as our queen on d7 is hanging. So congratulations if you even consider this. The point is, if rook captures on d7, then comes knight captures on h3, opening up a discovered check. And also all of these squares are covered by the knight, and this is covered by the rook. So the only move you have will be queen to f2, and then rook captures on f2 is checkmate. So this is what Alireza found when he played knight captures on f2. You cannot capture the black queen. So instead, we have rook captures on e8 with check, queen captures on e8, and now comes queen captures on f2. You have to give up the queen, there's no way around it, but Alireza doesn't just take it with rook captures on f2. First, he wants to position his queen perfectly. So queen to b5 check, king to g1, now you play rook captures on f2, king captures, and now queen to f5 with check, so the queen can infiltrate via the c2 square if the king goes to g1, for example. So he doesn't go to g1, he instead goes to e3, so now Alireza chooses a different path. Queen to g5 check, king to f2, and now queen to f4 with check, king to g1, and queen to e3 with check. We have king to f1, and now pawn to f5. Alireza needs the assistance of his pawns in order to deal the final blow. However, it's not going to be easy. It is possible to create some sort of a fortress here, perhaps. So knight to b2, we have queen to c3 attacking the knight, and knight to c4. We have pawn to a4. There was no way of saving those pawns. You have to give up the 2 pawns for the 1 pawn. Rook to e1, and now just a captures on b3. A captures, queen captures on b3, knight to e5 now. We have pawn to g5, just marching forward, knight to f3, and now king to g7. g4 is also perfectly fine, but Alireza wants to play it to absolute perfection. King to f2, and now king to f6. We have pawn to g4, not waiting for Alireza to advance the pawn to g4, and now queen to b6 with check. We have king to g3, and now queen to d6 with check. If you're wondering about pawn to f4, well, it looks very nice. It only helps white create some sort of a fortress, because once the rook lands on d2, there's really nothing black can push forward. I mean, h5, okay, but whether it's winning, you don't want to risk this. So queen to d6 check instead. We have king to f2, and now f captures on g4. H captures, and queen to f4. The g4 pawn is lost now. Point being that if you play rook captures on g1, there's h5, and if h captures, g4 wins the knight on f3. So instead, rook to h1 was played, but now just king to g7. Now again, if you go for queen captures on g4 right away, then rook captures on h6, and the white is again very close to a draw. Rook to d6, there's just not all that much you can do to push here, and the black king is white in the open. So instead, king to g7 was played, guarding the h6 pawn. White out of moves, you have to play something. Rook to g1 was played, and now pawn to h5. King to g2, you can't capture because of the same reason. g4 is coming, so king to g2, h captures on g4, and now knight to e1. We have pawn to g3 by Alireza, going for queen to f2 check, followed by queen to h2, rook to f1, and now queen to e3. So not a lot for Nodirbek to do here. If knight f3, just queen to e2 with check, and now you either lose the rook or you defend the rook, and then pawn to g4 dislodges the knight, and then queen to h2 will be checkmate. So instead, after queen to e3, king to h3 was played, but now comes queen to f2, and he was in this position on move 59 that Nodirbek Abdusattorov resigned the game, and another spectacular victory for Alireza Firouzja, who played all of the 3 games that he played in the first 3 rounds in classical. So Alireza has yet to play a single Armageddon game. He really came here to play a classical tournament. So remarkable stuff from Alireza, taking down Nodirbek Abdusattorov with the black pieces. For those of you who missed my yesterday's video or yesterday's videos, these are the standings after the first 3 rounds. Fabiano 7.5 points in sole first place. Alireza with 6 points in second place. Then Hikaru Nakamura with 5 in third place. Gukesh 4.5 in fifth place. We have Anish Giri and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Wesley in 7th place. Magnus Carlsen in 8th place. Mamedyarov in 9th. And last place Aryan Tari for the moment. These were the head-to-head scores. So Gukesh defeated Shakryar in Armageddon. Alireza defeated Nodirbek in Classical. Fabiano defeated Tari also in Classical. If you haven't haven't seen it, do check it out. This is my previous video. Wesley lost to Anisha, also in Armageddon, and Magnus Carlsen has defeated Hikaru Nakamura in Armageddon. Hikaru went for the King's Gambit. Also, if you haven't seen it, do check it out. I have it on my channel. And of course, the thing you enjoy most, these are the live ratings after round 3. So not a lot happening. Magnus Carlsen does seem to be the one losing the most points here. He's currently on minus 8.6. Fabiano Caruana, the biggest winner in the top 20, he is on plus 9.6. And we have some movement. Alireza also won some rating. Hikaru won some, currently 5 rating points. Yuan Gi on 4. Gukesh also in plus, and Nodirbek Abdusattorov, even though he lost this game, still on plus 0.1. But not a lot of shift in power in the top 20. Caruana did go up three squares, so he's currently world number 3. That's very significant. And now you can see that both Alireza, Magnus, Alireza, Hikaru, and Caruana are ahead of world champion Ding Liren on the classical world rating list. So that is pretty incredible. That's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Alireza. Today is a rest day, so if you have any other games that you would like me to show from some other tournaments, do use hashtag suggestion. We are continuing with the tournament tomorrow. That's the game. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Buntiak Pyang, Ravishing Reptiles YouTube, Michal Sakarias, David Kasparin, and Brandon Fukuda for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.